The Texas Education Agency is stepping in to take over Harlandale ISD. Last night, the school board voted to suspend Superintendent Ray Madrigal with pay and gave him a notice of termination. Assistant Superintendent Samantha Gallegos will temporarily take his place. This comes following a letter sent exactly 1 week ago today. The TEA listed multiple complaints of alleged violations by the Harlandale Board of Trustees and Superintendent as their reason. Issues related to what the agency calls contracting practices, nepotism, and Open Meeting Act violations. TEA is planning to have a conservator oversee the district, lower the district's accreditation status, and appoint a board of managers. The board president sent us a statement saying, quote, "We at Harlandale ISD continue to be committed in fostering an environment where our goals center on student outcomes and student achievements." At Monday's meeting, the board also voted to request a formal review of the appointment of the Board of Managers and assignment of accreditation worn status. Sharon Coe, KENS 5, Eyewitness News.